In today's video, we are talking about the 4 different trauma responses. Now, you may have heard of the fight or flight response, perhaps even the freeze response, but have you heard of the fawn response? And that may be the one that's actually primarily driving your life. So, we're going to take a deep dive into the 4 different trauma responses and how they relate to you in your everyday living. All right. So the first thing we want to look at is, if you haven't watched the video yet of the window of tolerance, I highly recommend you go and watch that video, because in this line in the middle is where the window of tolerance fits. Now, when you're calm, you're regulated, everything's going smooth, you are sitting in that window. You're good. You're not getting triggered. But when you're getting triggered, you're going up or down, and you're either going into fight, freeze, flight, or fawn. Now, fight and flight is in hyper arousal. Okay. Those are the bigger responses that you can see. It's often really hard to pick out the responses of people that are freeze and fawn. You might not even notice that someone is having a trigger because they're hidden. That's hypoarousal, okay? It's a lot more calm and it's a lot more hidden, and we don't even know that we're having it. So you might not know that you are having a trauma response, having a trigger. Now, if you don't understand exactly what trauma is and you're thinking, I don't have trauma, I'm not from a trauma background, I haven't had any major incidents happen or major abuse, well, you might want to go watch the video on what is trauma. I have another video on that, because 60% of people have had some sort of traumatic experience, more than 60%. I think it's like 68% or something like that. And of those, it's like 48% of children have recognized that they have at least one adverse childhood experience, and they've experienced one adverse thing in their life, which they experience as traumatic. Okay. It's the experience that then is leading to your nervous system response. So, what we're looking at here is the nervous system response. Okay. So it's not that you're in a moment and you're having trauma in that moment and then you're having a trauma trigger because of that trauma. It's not like that. You are actually having a trigger in the moment related to an experience of the past. Your body keeps the score of anything that has happened. Your memories are stored as imprints in your brain. There's another video on the bottom up brain. Highly recommend that as well. Your body is keeping the score, and it's keeping all of the experiences stored in a filing cabinet in your brain. And so when something is happening here and you're thinking, oh, that reminds me of this incident, you're having a trigger. Okay. So you're going into that trigger. Now, some of these triggers will be the one that is more prominent in your life than others. Okay. And you might have regular triggers throughout the day. You might have multiple. Maybe you have one a week. Maybe you have 8 a day. I'm not exactly sure. But we're going to have a look at how these manifest and how they could actually look in your life. So, when we're looking at the fight response, now this is the pretty obvious one. If somebody is triggered and they're in a fight response, they're angry, they're feeling the need to control, argue, be aggressive, and they're quite irritable. All right. So, if you are in, let's say, an argument with a family member, okay, and one of them is, your family member is anger, they're trying to control the situation, they're trying to control you and your thoughts, and saying, no, it's not like that, they're being aggressive, they're being irritable, they're arguing back and forth. Okay, their main trigger would be the fight response. So if something is not calm, remember, if we're in the calm, cool, collected, this is not happening. But as soon as something outside of that, we automatically go into a trigger. Okay. That's what that looks like. It's that automatic anger. I want to fight you in some way, not physically necessarily, but I want to argue with you. I want to go in that back and forth. All right. If somebody is in the flight, if the flight response kicks in, you're going to feel anxiety. You're going to feel like overachieving, busyness. Okay. In the everyday, in the day to day life, you might be keeping your schedule so busy. You might have perfectionism. You might not be able to sit still, and that can also manifest as workaholism. You might need to always be achieving, to be always doing, and that's flight. You are not able to stay in the present moment and be calm, cool, collected. Go to yoga, meditate, get your Zen on. You might always be thinking, I need to be doing something. I have to be getting this done. I have to be getting that done. And you're filling your schedule up to always maintain that busyness, that level of busyness, because you are flighting from yourself and your calm, cool, collected nervous system. You're running away from yourself in that one. All right. And even in fight, all of these ones are running away from yourself. Remember, this is your cool, calm, collected self on this line. Maybe I should draw it in a different color. Let's draw it in a different color, shall we? What color shall we draw? I think maybe orange. Let's draw it in orange. Okay. So if you are here, you're saying, oh, I'm so calm. I'm cool. I'm collected. Nothing bothers me. Everything is A-okay. This is the window. Okay. That is the window. Window. You cannot read that, I am sure, from there, but that's okay. That's the window. You want to maintain in your window. You want to maintain calm, cool, collected. You want to feel so calm in your own self. You are secure in yourself. That's a securely attached human being because you know yourself, you understand yourself, and you're calm, cooled, and collected. Okay? Cooled, whatevs. I'd like to make up words sometimes. You probably know if you watch my other videos. Lol, it's fun. Okay. Then we move to the freeze response. Now, if you're in a freeze response, you are going to collapse. Okay? Physically, perhaps, but it might not be physically. Usually it's just an emotional collapse. It's disassociation, it's numbness, it's the inability to act, it's procrastination, shutting down, and it can manifest as looking like depression, even though you're not depressed. You're not clinically depressed. It might not be depression, could be depression, but it might not be depression, but it will look like that because you're just numb. You're numb to everything. You dissociate because you're like, whoa, I don't want to argue with someone. You might have somebody on this side who's fighting with you and they're arguing and they're trying to control. And you're like, okay. And you just dissociate and you numb. You go off into your own little world and you don't want to fight it. You dissociate, you numb, you collapse, you cannot act. You say, nah, I tap out. I'm out. It's a freeze response. All right. So that's what that looks like. Now, the fourth one is fawn. Now, this one is coming up new. People don't really understand what fawn is, don't even know that it exists because in a lot of the literature previously in the early 2010s, around 2010, 2012, when Stephen Porges wrote his book, Polyvagal Theory, around that time was 2011. So around that time, 2011, 12, 13, 14, people were writing about this and they were calling it fight, flight, freeze response. Now, more recently, we've added in the fawn response because it's not just freezing, it's also fawning. Okay. This can look like people pleasing, being agreeable, appeasing someone, losing your voice, compulsive helpfulness, and the difficulty saying no. So you can't say no to someone. When you're numb, you're not saying anything. You have no ability to act. But this, you're like, okay, yep, I'll do that, no problem. And you're fawning because that's your response is to fawn in that moment. Freezing means you completely shut down. You don't say anything, you don't do anything. This one means you're the yes person. You're like, yes, okay, I'll do that just because you don't want to deal with the other person who might be a fighter. They might be a fighter as well. There might be any one of these things, but the other person in that relationship, of any relationship, it could be a work relationship, could be a home life relationship, it could be a partnership, can be any type of relationship that these things are manifesting because these things come out of your natural response system from your nervous system, from your previous experiences, most likely your childhood, because a lot of our early experiences depict how we act today. Our past is actually predicting our present moment and unfortunately may predict our future. However, we can change. We can change our experience of our present moment and of our past and then have a nice, hopeful, positive future where we can manifest our exact dream life that we want. And I have other videos on that. But right now, we're focusing on these responses. Okay. So these are called triggers. All right. Triggers. I don't know if you know of triggers, and people might say, oh, I'm so triggered right now. A lot of people are understanding that they are getting triggered. People are getting that. People are saying, yeah, I'm triggered right now. What does that trigger look like? And a different trigger comes out at different times, and with different people, right? So at different times in my life, these come out. Now, on the day to day, I would say that my most primary trigger, my most primary response, my most primary reaction in life, and the way that I'm kind of sitting. So if I'm going to stay in my window, I go to yoga, I do my meditations. I love yoga, meditations, journaling. I'm calm and collected. But when I'm not in that really good Zen state, I tend to go to the flight state. Perfectionism, not sitting still, workaholism, busyness, overachieving. I constantly have this internalized pressure within myself to keep doing more, to be busy. And it's not that anyone's asking me to be busy. People are not asking me to do anything. I feel the need to write more books, to write journal articles, to make more videos, to make more carousels and post on Instagram. I feel this innate need to do more constantly. That's just my primary response. However, if I'm in an argument, for example, with my husband, some obviously when people live together, you're going to argue, you're going to have these things, particularly in the morning. Oh my goodness, I am not a morning person. So in the morning, I might be over here. I might be in that flight, sorry, not flight. I get out of flight and I go into the fight response and I'm like, ugh, don't talk to me before I have coffee. I don't want this, blah, 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 blah. I might try to control the situation, control what my husband is doing, um, argue, be argumentative, and be aggressive. Uh, yeah, Jen without coffee is a little bit like that. All right. And there are other times in my life I'll go into the freeze and fawn. There are certain periods of my life where I have sat in these areas, but I have really worked on this area, the people pleasing, the being agreeable, losing my voice. I have found my voice in the last few years. So this is not really where I'm at. Difficult saying no. I don't have a difficulty saying no anymore. I'm pretty good at that, which is really something that I've worked on. I used to say yes and just go with everything and be like, oh, now I have to go to this and I have to go to that event and I have to do this for that person. But now I don't do that anymore. If I can't do it, if I don't have the capacity to take that on my plate, I will say no. And I will push back and I'll say, no, I can't do that right now. And I don't have that need to be constantly, um, saying yes to people and doing what they want. Okay. And so I've worked on these areas. I'm still working. This is the current one I'm working on, the flight response for me personally. I'm working on that. I'm trying to say, okay, Jen, you don't have to be so busy. Go to yoga. And I have a really hard time actually when I'm in yoga, in Pilates, in body balance classes. And obviously, like you're doing your movements, staying present. That's really hard to stay in the present moment, not being still. You're trying to be still. You're trying to do your yoga. You're trying to do that stuff. Get out of your head and just embody the present moment. And that can be really difficult for me. So that's the one that I'm working on. In your own life, what is it that you're working on? Which one of these four resonates with you the most? How often are you actually staying in that window of tolerance? Okay. Are you staying in that calm, cool, collected zone? Or do you wake up in the morning and you're a fighter? Or do you go into freeze? You procrastinate, you shut down. Or do you wake up with the sense of busyness and I need to do, 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 do? Or are you a fawner? Are you losing your voice? Are you people pleasing? Are you doing everything that everyone else wants of you? Which four resonates with you the most? Feel free to leave a comment in the comment box, and I hope to talk to you soon.